Hey guys, it's Vandy Aslo by Carpet Vanguard. Our profile, so if you guys enjoyed, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and stuff. This time we are covering DZ set 11 for Levidras, so like the other decks I've mentioned this week for at least half of them. I did not think I'd be giving Levidras a set 11 deck profile. However, I was really smart back in set 7 when Levidras did get a support card, and I chose not to do a deck profile on it because it was only a one card change, even though the ban list was up for Levidras anyways. But because only one card was changed, I chose not to do the deck profile, and now I get to use that card in this deck profile and generate my deck profile reasoning because I normally only do a deck profile if I change two cards at once, unless there's very specific reasoning for it, ahem Brazil. So there you go. Let's get the start shot and see what we got, because honestly this deck is actually very fun to play, and again I'm very surprised I actually did Levidras deck profile of this set. First up we have our energy generator, so it's our ride deck crest. You may only have one ride deck crest in your ride deck. Auto ride deck, when you ride, put this card into your crest zone. If you win second, energy charge 3. Continuous, you may have a 10 energy, auto begin your ride phase, energy charge 3, then act once per turn, energy about 7, draw a card. Cool, pretty solid. You get a free 3 energy every turn. If you win second, you get an extra 3 on top of that, and once you have 7 more energy, you can blast 7 to draw a card. Only one card in this deck really uses energy, so pretty much you can spam it down as much as you want with the energy blast 7 as long as you have that one grade 2 active. So very solid card there. That's your ride deck crest. On to our starter, we have Stag Nipper Dragon. Grade Zone boost, 5k shield, 6k base, auto road pop second draw card, standard starter, no special free draw if you go second. You do actually have to make this your start if you plan on using the Levidras ride line, because the grade 1 does require the grade 0. So if you plan on using the grade 1 of the ride line, which is honestly a pretty solid skill, you gotta run Stag Nipper, but it's still a good start nonetheless. Then we have our Overtrigger and Source Dragon DD of Blessings, Bust Favor. Grade Zone boost, 50k shield, 5k power, Overtrigger, you Overtrigger in your deck, or vote as a trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose zombies, get a +1 minimum for the turn. If you voted during a jet check, activate the addition effect, would you get to draw a card, choose one of you and get a +1 critical for the turn. Your front row gets 10,000 power, and if you're damaged by the same number of cards of your opponents or more, you can choose a card from your damage zone to heal it. Arm pretty solid because whether you drive check this or damage check this, someone gets a million, you get a draw. But if you drove check, you get a second draw. Someone gets a critical, either your Vanguard thing you're giving the million to. You get 10k to the front row, so if your opponent wanted to pass the Vanguard, no need to put the million on the Vanguard, just put it on someone else. The front row 10k will be enough to break through and then give it the critical. And you even possibly get a heal trigger out of it as well. All around, I really do love Bust Favor because sacking it doesn't auto win you the game, and it's very fun to pull off all the different effects once. You can make this Volna to add more multi-attack to Levidras, or it is Fario for recycling and crit pressure, but I really do prefer Bust Favor just for the sack it and you pull off every single trigger effect aspect. And then we have our normal triggers. We're on a total of 7 crit, 3 of them being Peppery Pepper, grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power, just a vanilla crit, makes any crit you want. And then 4 Aspiring Maiden Alana, grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 4k power, critical trigger, auto rear guard. At the end about she boosted, shove her to soul, choose new, give 2k for the turn. You don't need Alana necessarily, but the deck can possibly run into a soul problem. So if you want to guarantee that you don't, it is nice to have Alana, but again, not necessarily required. So we have total 7 crit for pressure, and then 4 fronts and Frenzy Harris, grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 4k power, continues guard circle, every opponent's Vanguard to grade 3 grade at 5,000 to her shield, so she's a 20k shield. She's also a front trigger, so it adds more number to Levidras. You can run draws to help increase your hand, like guarantee you have very specific pieces, and honestly, I was up and about with the front for having numbers, with the draw trigger for having consistency. I just wrote the front trigger because beat sticks. And then we have our heal and 4 Cheery Support Elf, grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power. Make this any heal you want. You don't have to make it Cheery Support Elf. I only made Cheery Support Elf because I made Pepper Pepper the critical, and I normally have like my heals and crits as like combos. So if I have one specific critical, then I have to run a specific heal trigger, and well, Peppery Pepper and Cheery Support Elf are that combo. So take that as you will. On to our grade 1s. We're on 4 copies of Knight of Silent Illusion Clarence. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, auto rear guard, nothing about that this unit attack or boosted. If you have an Infinity Eyes marker saying column as him and you did not countercharge this turn, put the soul countercharge 1. So for those who don't know what Infinity Eyes markers are, they are pretty much vanilla cards that get placed on rear guard circle via specifically Levidras effect, and that's all you need to know. Thankfully, most of the cards that require Infinity Eyes markers don't have to be on a circle with Infinity Eyes in it. It just has to be in the same column as Infinity Eyes, which is really easy to pull off, honestly, with this deck. So being able to basically be a Bulbamine, which aka is a Yeet to Soul countercharge, is incredible once you have any Infinity Eyes marker in the same column as this unit. And again, it procs off whether it attacks or boosts, which is really helpful because we have a lot of cards that do Soul Blast, and we have a lot of cards that take up CB, so mitigating both those costs for free. Awesome grade 1 at 4 copies. And then we have 4 copies of Full Knowledge Foxel. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, continues rear guard circle during the battle that he boosted. If your Vanguard's a grade 3 grade Levidras at 5,000 power, so 13k base, and then auto rear guard when this unit boosts a grade 3 or greater Vanguard Levidras on the card name. If you have an Infinity Eyes marker on your opponent's rear guard circle, this unit gets 2,000 power for the battle. Then you can counterbox 1 and choose one of your back row rear guards till end of the turn. That unit can attack from back row and get 10,000 power. Arm pretty solid, doesn't require your opponent to be at grade 3. It allows you just basically to spend a CB to get back row attack for a unit and give it +10 10k as well, so your opponent can't easily shut it down with triggers. Not to mention the fact that even if you don't choose to give a unit back row attack, it's still a 15k booster inherently as long as there's a marker somewhere on your opponent's board. Just remember to actually put a marker on your opponent's board, because Imperio, your ride deck grade 3, allows you to put markers anywhere on the board, so there are times where you won't necessarily put stuff on the opponent's board. Just make sure you remember to actually have one on there so you can use Foxo, because my friend got effed over by that a few times when he first started playing Levidras without realizing that Foxo required that one. Either way though, very solid grade 1 to have in the deck, as it initializes multi-attacking for a very cheap and efficient cost, so 4 of. Then we have our PGs, 4 copies of Honeycomb Thyrus, grade 1 boost, 0 silt, 6k base, continuous sentinel, 4 sentinels in deck. Auto is put on guard circle, choose 1 mutes, it cannot be hit in the battle, hands 2 more cards in it, choose a card from hand and discard it. Standard PG, nothing too special about it, but that means if this only one of cards in your hand plus on guard circle, you don't have to discard, great, because that means you'll be super aggressive in the early game. You only really want to put Foxel in the back center, but I mean, Clarence you can be super aggressive with, the rest of your deck can be super aggressive with, so when your opponent does eventually counterattack you, throw down Thyrus, give them the middle finger, you're good to go. Very solid PG to have. You can make this Custodial Dragon, or you could make this Planet Prevent Dragon. They have the same skill as Thyrus, but I prefer to make it Thyrus because she came out close to the time of Levidras' release. And then we have our last grade 1 in the deck, one of the red deck and then the main deck of Score Piercer Dragon. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, continues Vanguard Circle. If your soul has a Stagner per dragon in it, when you would ride to make the size dragon from the ride deck, you can ride without discarding a card from your hand. So pretty much you get a free ride from your grade 1 to your grade 2 as long as the grade 0 in soul. As for our grade 2s, 2 copies of Skulk Claws Huntsman Huli. I feel like a lot of people are going to call me out for the 2 copies. I say 2 because I've consistently seen her like 2 copies every single game in my hand, so I don't feel too bad about this. If you really want to up her, I don't think you need more than 3. Swap this and whatever one of the next 2 cards down a copy, just so you can have the 3 copies, but I personally feel fine at 2. Grade 2 intercept, 5k shield, 10k base, auto place on rearguard circle. If you have an affinity as marker, saying call him as her. CB1, choose a grade 3 less card from your drop zone, call to rearguard circle, and if you have 3 more affinity as markers, she gets 10,000 power for the turn. So 20k base when you have 3 more markers, but even if you don't, it's a CB1 call rearguard. You get Searcher over here, you get more draw power over here, you get your amazing grade 2 back row attacker, you get abusable grade 3 who can call herself. Worst case scenario, you get grade 3 that can be called to rearguard, or you get your important back row attacker enabler, or Clarence. Like, point is, Huli is a very good grade 2 to have, as she pretty much toolboxes your entire deck out from your drop zone. Again, if you want to up her to 3 copies, because I was very hesitant about putting her down to 2, but again, I realized that I only really ever see 2 copies of her, and I only use 2 copies of her, so might as well keep her at 2. But if you want to up her to 3, between this card and this card, tech one of them down by 1, and then up Huli to 3. Or tech both them down to 2, and then up Huli to 4. It's up to you completely, but I prefer the 2 copies because I can work with 2 copies. As for our next grade 2, 3 copies of Inquired Pantherod. Aha, the reason why I can do this deck profile, because I chose to not do a deck profile when he first debuted. Grade 2 intercept, 5k shield, 10k base. One of the best searchers I've ever seen. I will say this, DZ gave us so many good searchers. There's a really good Nirvana searcher that I have my eye on because I may or may not be trying to build a Nirvana deck in real life. We have this really good Levidras searcher. Rezael has a really, I think it was Rezael that has a really good searcher. Every nation in general has like a top 7 searcher for a different grade named grade 3, and like DZ gave us a lot of like different named grade 3s that can proc Persona Ride. So like a lot of good grade 3 searchers exist because of DZ. So proud of that. If there's anything we walk away from this season with, it's that. Anyways, grade 2 5k shield, 10k base, auto place on rearguard circle that has an infinity-ized marker specifically on it. One of the only cards that specifies it has to be on the circle. It gets 5,000 power for the turn, and if your infinity-ized marker is on your other rearguard circle, saying calm as it, choose one of your other rearguards and it gets 5,000 power for the turn. So if it's placed on the marker, it gets plus 5,000 power. If there's a marker on another circle and saying calm as it, someone else gets 5,000 power. I'm pretty sure you can proc it off. Like say for example, it's not placed on a circle that has a marker on it, but there is a marker saying calm as it, someone else gets 5k. But if you have 2 markers, one on the column is placed on and then one directly on it, it can still proc the 5k skill on both ends. And then auto rearguard, that's about to attack anything, regardless of what grade the player is at. Retire this unit, check the top 7, to up to 1 grade 3 or grade 11 Levidras card, reveal a player to hand and shuffle your deck. This card hard pulls you a Levidras, which is incredible because your 2 Levidrases can persona off of one another. So that's just a top 7 search for one of 8 cards for free, and you can pull it off as early as grade 2. This card's incredible. I don't need to tell you why you need to run this. 3 of. And then we have 3 copies of the unit that made me want to do this deck profile, Council Urtis. It looks so cool for a card I unfortunately will barely use, but still. Grade 2 intercept, 5k shield, 10k base. Auto when placed on rearguard circle. Choose a grade 3 card Levidras in this card name from your ride deck and may reveal it. If you reveal the card or your Vanguard is already a grade 3 or grade Levidras, CB1, draw a card, mill the top card. I really wish this was an archetypal Sarfia because, you know, Sarfia was like generically used back when a very specific grade 3 was limited. And, you know, this card already has that ability kind of, where Starfield could like check the top card and either mill it or put it back on top. Don't know why I couldn't have just done that too, because it also gets you a draw, but I guess that was too powerful to deck stack, especially because Huli already has a superior call skill lockdown. And then auto rear guard, when this unit attacks a grade 3 guard unit from a rear guard circle with Infinity Eyes marker on it, this unit gets 5,000 power for the turn, and then you can Soul Blast 2 to choose one of your opponent's rear guard till end of your opponent's next turn that you cannot intercept, and it cannot stand during the stand phase. Don't know why Levidras got a random control tool, but okay, cool. As long as it swings from an Infinity Eyes marker, albeit while your opponent's at grade 3, but still, it's, or any grade 3 guard unit, so they don't have to be a grade 3, but odds are they will be. It's a 15k, but again, the Infinity Eyes marker, so 25k swing at bare minimum, and it locks down your opponent's interceptor. At least it doesn't have to swing from back row from that, otherwise that'd be way too restrictive. Honestly, it's a very solid grade 2 though. It gets you a draw in place, and it can mill your top card, which can, albeit be really risky, but it could get you trigger thinning, and it can lead to a very fun combo with her if you get really lucky. Not to mention the fact that it could, again, be a 25k swinger and restrict your opponent's board a little bit, so saw 3 of. And it just looks really cool all around. Like, honest to God, it's mainly the art that makes me run around this card. Then we have 4 copies of our amazing grade 2, grade 2 5k shield, 10k base of On-Fall Analtogaster. Auto when placed on rear guard circle. If you have an Infinity Eyes marker, same column as it. Energy Blast 3 to check the top 2. Choose a card from one of them, put it to hand, put the other at the top or bottom. It gets 5,000 power for the turn. Cool. Levidras has the ability to deck stack. I really want to know why Levidras had, like, I mean, granted, it's only one card, but why in its debut set, Levidras had a card that could deck stack. When a card that's focused on infinity and knowledge, it makes sense that it deck stacks, but what I'm getting at here is why does Levidras himself not deck stack when, like, his one random support card that's really good can deck stack? I'll never understand it, but whatever. And then continues rear guard circle during your turn. If you have a grade 3 guard of Vanguard Levidras in the card name, and you have 3 or more Infinity Eyes markers anywhere, this unit gets 5,000 power, and if you do not have another back or rear guard same card name as it, it can attack from back row. I specify anywhere because how the Infinity Eyes markers work, and this is mainly important for if you play a mirror match, regardless of where the markers are on the board, because you can give them to your opponent, they are still considered yours as long as you're the one that made them. So say, for example, you have 2 on your side of the field, but then 1 on your opponent's side. If you're the one that placed all 3 of those markers, they are considered your 3 or more Infinity Eyes markers, even though one of them's on the opponent's field. But if you're playing a mirror match, that's when it gets really confusing, so make sure to distinguish that with your opponent about whose markers is who. But either way, though, being able to attack from back row and get extra power once you have 3 or more markers, not requiring the opponent to be at grade 3, mind you, is incredible, because combine that with Fuck, so you got 5 attacks on opponent's grade 2 Vanguard. And by the way, I was on the receiving end of this when Imperial first came out, where this thing had to be limited, and I still had to deal with it. Levidras hits like freaking truck on steroids if you're going second, and they got the first grade 3 turn with 5 attacks. I don't know how the hell I won that game. And then also the fact that this thing in deck stack 2 can be really good in early game rush, but also just really good in end games, because, you know, stacking a trigger is really good. So 4 of an On-Fall Analtogaster, very solid grade 2 all around. I can't tell you more than that. Then we have our last grade 2 in the deck, one of them right in the main deck of Manti-Scythe Dragon, who has a very simple skill, but a very powerful skill at that. Grade 2, intercept 5k shield, 10k base, auto when wrote upon by a grade 3 card, Levidras in the card name, energy blast 3, check the top 5, to 1 grade 3 less card from one of them, reveal, put it to hand, shuffle your deck. This is not a call a card from the top 5. It is at any grade 3 or less for energy blast 3, which you get literally right before you ride. So paying the cost that you get right before you ride, check the top 5, add literally any card that isn't a grade 4 to your hand. The reason why this is important, you can add a Persona ride, you could add a very important rear guard, or you can add a PG. Unlike every other card that checks the top 5, it's one of the few ones that doesn't force call it to rear guard circle or have it to be through specific measures to not get called. Meaning you can get whatever you want from that top 5 and not have to call it, or you can choose to call it if you want to. But the point is, free PG or basically free add anything from the top 5 to hand. This is awesome grade 2. I don't know what to tell you about it. One of them in the right deck. Then we have our grade 3s, 3 copies of Knight of Formosity Charmant. So for those of you that didn't play Levidras and don't know about it, this card came out back when Imperial came out and led to a very annoying and fun combo where you could whip this thing out on turn 3 while your opponent is on turn 2, and like I mentioned earlier, beat them down with 5 attacks to the face, with the smallest number being 25k to a grade 2 Vanguard. And the fact that I survived most of those turns is a miracle in of itself, to the point where Charmant was actually limited to 2 almost immediately upon release. I think she was limited to 2 within the set 5 meta. Then later on she got limited to 1. Right before I started recording this video the week earlier, they decided that they were going to unlimit Charmant and put her back to 4. Now I don't need her at 4 because the deck can deck thin a lot and also this thing exists, but you know, it's good that you can run more than 2 copies of it now. I kind of wish that I couldn't, on the grounds of there is one more card I really want to put in this deck, but now that Charmant is allowed to be at 4, I can't justify putting in that one card because it's like you put it in for space unless your deck is specifically built around it, and this deck is not built around that card. And well, again, space is here, so So yeah, unfortunately, I can't run that one card I really want. I kind of do wish Charmant was banned just for that one card because it was so cute and I really wanted to run it. Anyways, Charmant with Act Drop Zone, if you have 3 or more Infinity Eyes markers and you do not have a copy of her on board, Soul Boss 1, call to Rearguard Circle, and then auto Rearguard when she attacks anything. If your Infinity Eyes markers and calm as her, retire another Rearguard and she'll get 10,000 power from the battle. At the end of the battle, retire this unit, draw a card. None of those abilities require your opponent to be at grade 3, meaning if you put a marker on her, she's a 33k swing, not to mention the fact that she can call herself back from Drop Zone. And while yes, the first call requires you not to have a copy of her on board, if you have something like Huli or Azure Sarfia, who can superior call grade 2 or greater from the Drop Zone, suddenly you can have 2 of these things staring you down and beating the crap out of you. And as I keep iterating, even though there was only limited to 2 copies back then, I still got consistently beat the crap out of by that combo. And also, you know, her being able to be a 23k swinger on her own without a marker is incredible, but also being able to retire herself again to then draw a card and then you can recall her the next turn makes her an awesome grade 3. You can up her to 4, but I feel like 3 is a good enough number where you'll see her consistently enough. Then we have our supporting main grade 3, 4 copies, none in the ride deck, all in the main deck of Destin 1 of Infinity Levidras. So I'm just going to go over its skill. I'm not going to give you the reason why it's good or bad. So grade 3 to 9% 30k base, active Vanguard once per turn, CB1, choose one of your and your opponent's rear guards each and put a Infinity Eyes marker on those circles. Auto Vanguard, when any fighter's unit on a rear guard when the Infinity Eyes marker on it attacks or boosts, you may have that unit gain 10,000 power or lose 10,000 power for the battle. If it was an opponent's unit that lost 10,000 power, remove your Infinity Eyes marker from that rear guard circle and you may draw a card, and you do draw a card, so there's mandatory draw. I'll say this though, it is really funny that you can choose to give your opponent's unit 10k. I don't know why you would do that, but you can if you want to. And then Divine Skill, you can only use it once per game. Active Vanguard, if your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 greater, Soul Boss 1, choose one of your and your opponent's rear guard circles each, put an Infinity Eyes marker on both of them, and this unit gets the power and +1 critical for the turn. The only skill I'm going to go over is the Divine Skill because it relates to Imperio, but cool, it gets an extra marker on both players' boards, which gives you a total of 2 markers, and as you saw, most of our cards require 3 markers, so its ability being able to also make 1 more marker for a simple CB is pretty solid off that alone. And again, it's a 23k double critical basis. I can use that Divine Skill. However, the rest of its ability doesn't really matter because we're going to translate it straight over to Destined King of Infinity Levidras Imperial, the upgraded version of Levidras. 3 copies in the main deck, 1 copy in the ride deck. So grade 3 to 9% 13k base. Continuous Vanguard, this unit is also regarded as Destined 1 of Infinity Levidras, and during your turn it gets 5,000 power for each OG Levidras in the soul and all of their Divine Skills. 8k, once this thing ends up in soul, the Divine Skill of Soul Boss 1, give it 10k in a crit and make a marker on both rearguard circles becomes Imperial's Divine Skill, but also gets 5k for each copy in soul. More importantly, because it counts as Destined 1 of Infinity Levidras on the Vanguard circle, just like how Rezael Vita can persona off of OG Rezael and vice versa, this card can also do the same. So you can persona ride Levidras OG on top of Imperial and vice versa, which is pretty cool. Then act Vanguard once per turn, CB1 or put a hand card from into your soul, choose 2 of any player's rear guards and put an Infinity Eyes mark on each of them. However, if you put a grade 3 greater card Levidras and its card name into your soul for this cost, choose 3 rear guards instead of 2. So either CB1 if you have no hand cards or you have like important hand cards that you want to call to rear guards such as Charmant over here during a final turn play, make 2 markers. Or if you have one of your many Levidrases, and it could be either Imperial or OG, preferably OG, but it works for either or, you make 3 markers instead, which is pretty cool. So it's nice that this thing has a very separate cost where you get a draw every single turn, so worst case scenario you send your draw to soul, but you can also just spend the CB if you really do need that hand card to commit rear guards with, and you still get a marker on rear guard. But unlike Levidras, who only gave you a marker on 1 on each player's board, this can put the markers anywhere. You want to put all 3 on your side for a final turn gambit, go ahead and do it. You want to put 2 on your side and 1 on your opponent's side just to guarantee Foxhole, go ahead. Or you want to put all 3 on your opponent's side so that way you can make sure you survive through the next turn, feel free to do so. And then Auto Vanguard, same ability as the last Levidras. When any player's unit on a rearguard circle with your Infinity Eyes marker on attacks or boosts, you may have that unit get 10,000 power or lose 10,000 power for the battle. If it's an opponent unit that lost 10,000 power, move the marker and you draw a card. So it's a way to get extra hand cards as well. And again, it's very funny that you can give your opponent's unit plus 10, or that you can also make your own unit lose 10k. I don't know why you would do either of those two, but it'd be very funny if someone actually did it and it won them the game. That would be some like Yusei Fudo Yu-Gi-Oh protagonist BS level of crap. And if someone actually does that, I want to hear about it and I want to like have like the play-by-play to understand why they did, because I feel like that'd be very fun. Either way though, it's a very solid grade 3 and it's an amazing upgrade over the OG Levidras, allowing you to place markers on any player's board as much as you want. Not to mention the fact that it gets stronger for each OG Levidras and Soul, and his skill to make markers, although being once per turn, has 2 alternate costs that are really good for the deck. So solid 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the ride deck. And then we have our 10 Infinity Eyes markers, so they themselves are vanilla. Their abilities really gained by Levidras Imperial's effect. They're just representing the Infinity Eyes marker. You cannot put them into your main deck. You only really need 10 of them. That's all I'm going to say. And without further ado, that's it for this one. Hope all of you guys enjoyed. All around, this deck is genuinely very fun to play. This is Stoicheia. You know, you have a lot of like revival units. If you want to like just mess around with with this deck and make it about like reviving your Charhamons and beating your opponent to death with a 23k beat stick, then you very much can. But you also have like, you know, tools that can restrict your opponent's movements, draw you cards. You have cards that can just get you generic searching. You have consistent 5-row back row attack, which is really fun. Fun fact, my friend that decked a very competitive build of Levidras back in set 5 where there was only 3 Foxel and 1 Clarence. Somehow he saw the Clarence every single game, but almost every game he would whiff Foxel, which again, there was 3 Foxel, so I don't know why the 4th one made the difference, but yeah, that's kind of the reason why I put Foxel at 4 here, so he can use the deck and not have PTSD. Either way though, this is a very fun deck to play, and I definitely recommend you try it out if you are interested. So I'm going to end here. Hope all of you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join the Discord, follow Twitch, and I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to set up your Vanguards.